So you guys need me to like really guide the conversation, or can you guys like?
Yeah, just to make sure we don't run too long, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think like if you think we're talking about one particular part for too long, then just move the conversation along a wee bit.
No worries. I get it up.
Hey, Mitch.
It's already recording, so we've been talking for recording for 5 minutes now.
Oh, great.
Jeez. Great. Terrific.
Now everybody gets nervous. No.
I literally just did the thing with my hands. I'm like, oh, good. Okay, cool.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So we're all ready to go, or you there, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, is my audio any better, or like, can you hear me clearly at least? Or?
Yeah, it's better than it was last time for sure.
Yeah, cool. I'm just using a different sort of mic
okay.
thing, so yeah, that's probably why. But yeah, cool.
All right, cool. So
Alright.
this is the spoiler cast for The Last of Us Part 2. Whoever's watching this, if you haven't played the game yet, turn this video off, finish the game, and then come back. And then when you do, give us a like and subscribe to us. My name's Sebastian. You can follow me at LittleSeb93 on Twitter. I'm going to be hosting this Spoilercast and probably future Spoilercast and then future podcasts, which we're going to start next week. So next we're going to start with, let's say, Mitch, because he's the one that wrote the review. So
yes, I did. Yeah. Hi, I'm Mitchell. I wrote the review. I gave it a 9.5. You can follow me on Twitter at uneducatedpop, the uneducated film geek. Mm-hmm. Because why not? And also follow us on Instagram. I mainly run the Instagram page, so obviously as much support on that as well will be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Cool. And next we'll do James, because he's the one that narrated the review.
Hello, I'm James. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, at Untitled Smithy. And that's pretty much it.
Next we have Fran.
Yeah, a few audio issues.
Yeah.
Not that serious.
It's like in music, when you make a mistake, you just keep going.
Yeah. Imagine if we did this live.
Hey, hi, my name's Dory. I go by she, her pronouns. You can find me on Twitter as well, at dclaire192. That's DCLYERE 192. And I'm really excited to talk about this game.
Cool. So now that we're all ready to go, what did you guys like about the game? I'll start with Mitch.
I mean, I think the thing that, and obviously the thing that I focus most on my review and the thing that stuck with me the most is the story and just how it was told and its themes, which we'll get into later and unpack there. But I think just the story that they told, especially in relation to the first one, was, obviously not everyone has loved it, but at the same time, it's something that I personally found both as a fan and as, a human being, I could definitely resonate with a lot. And I just sort of definitely feel, I have to commend Neil Druckmann and all the writers at Naughty Dog for actually making a game so ballsy and ambitious, especially, after the first one, which, is basically universally loved. Right. So I think, I just can't help but commend Neil Druckmann for taking the direction he did. And I mean, obviously you can have some criticisms with it, which, is great. But I think at the end of the day, they told a story that, resonated with a lot of people emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I think, at the end of the day, if you want to construct a good story, that's sort of the basis of what you need to do. You need to have something that resonates with people and that gets people emotional and lets people remember it, which,
for sure,
let's just say I'll certainly be remembering it for a long time to come.
Yep, definitely. So what about you, Dory? What did you like?
So for me, it's not a perfect game, and it's not flawless or anything like that, but I think it's about as good as a linear single player narrative game can be. I think the attention to detail, the animation, the story, like Mitch said, I think is so, even if you don't agree with all the choices, it's hard to not respect the kind of daring it takes to tell this sort of story when there are so many games that take the easy way out when it comes to characters and whether they live or die, and whether they especially whether they have some sort of glorious finale or something to their lives. I think the gameplay is really excellent. And I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey's voice acting in this. I think they deserve all of the BAFTAs. Yeah, it's just a phenomenal game. Honestly.
Yep. So, Fran, what did you think?
I mean, for me, the big seller was the gameplay. I played the first one 20 odd times just for the gameplay, and that's not the best gameplay. So going into the second one, all these improvements they've put in, ducking and weaving between all these objects and stuff, and being able to really use the combat environment 4 times now, and I don't get bored of it. So I think gameplay is probably the biggest thing that I loved about the game, and yeah.
Yeah, I think the gameplay was probably my favorite part, honestly. James, what did you like about it?
Yeah. A lot of things, but to me, if we want to maybe address the elephant in the room for a minute, I think Joel's death was, while immensely sad,
We'll get there.
but that was so well executed, I think, because you've got sort of the scene where he actually dies, which is sort of filled with this sort of not sadness but sort of shock and disbelief. And then instead of, I think a lot of media, when they kill off a beloved character, they do the hero's death where you're supposed to be sad when they die. But when Joel dies, right? Yeah, but when Joel dies, he goes out there's nothing special about his death, and then they give you the time to mourn after the fact. And I think that was really clever how they sort of separated those two things.
I also think it's realistic, because anyone can die at any moment. What pissed people off a lot was the fact that Joel just willingly said his name. You know what I mean? And Tommy and Joel didn't try to hide their names at all. I think that's one of the big points that people have made. Why would they do that? And
one of the things Neil Druckmann was saying about that as well, which I agree with, was it's been 4 years they've been in Jackson. They've sort of become accustomed to a certain way of living,
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I feel. I feel Joel just got comfortable because he's been. How long were they there for? After the
4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was.
Yeah.
And when you're in that situation, you do have to trust people too. I mean, they literally had to run from a giant crowd of zombies, and then, and then he's in a room with people. He thought he was safe in a fort, like a little base. So,
I think one of the most I think one of the most impactful things that, I forget who pointed it out, but I think you can the thing that really nails home the fact that Joel's changed in the 4 years between games, especially with how he's interacted with the greater Jackson community, is right after his death, and Ellie visits his gravestone, and you just sort of walk up to his place and you see flowers and just you see flowers and pieces of gifts just littered outside the house everywhere, and it's sort of one of those things that really lets you know, at least subliminally, wow, okay, Joel's sort of had this impact on the greater community. He's actually interacted with them. He's, I don't want to say a hero to them, but he's definitely someone that they cared about. And I dare say that Joel cared about Jackson as well. So I think he's definitely changed his ways in between games, and that definitely reflects his actions in obviously in how we approached Abby and her group.
No.
I think also with that house scene, a couple things jump out to me. The first thing that just gutted me, and I mean, I was spoiled on this, unfortunately, but
yeah,
I feel like that's another sort of elephant in the room kind of thing. But it still impacted me hugely. I didn't cry or anything, but one thing that definitely gut punched me was when Ellie goes up to his coat and she just smells it to just remember that such physical sensation or smell to just try to remember someone you love, or someone you cared about, or someone you had such a rough sort of father-daughter relationship with. is just so tough. I think going to what Mitch said about the community loving him, there's that line later in the game where Jesse shows up and he says, I would have come with you. And Ellie's like, I didn't, I just didn't want to ask that of you. And Jesse's like, no, I mean, I looked up to Joel. I thought he was great. I would have done this if you had asked. And Ellie's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to like go around the room and see what thing in Joel's house had the most impact on everyone. But for me, it was that photo of Joel and Sarah, because in the one of my favorite scenes in the first game was that scene just after the draft bit where Ellie gives Joel the photo and reveals that she had stolen it. And like the acting in that scene was really good, and that's the scene that I remember the most from the first game. So seeing that photo in Joel's house just sort of destroyed me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even. That scene wasn't even properly mocapped as well. Like it was hand animated, and the fact that it stuck with people that long, just like a simple interaction, like any other interaction between Joel and Ellie in the game was, just sort of handing over a photo, having a look at it. It just shows the power of their performances, that they can carry a scene without having to use their bodies. They can just use their voices, and you can, really feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
No, another thing we haven't really talked about as much is the gameplay. To me, gameplay is always king in any game, and I think. As much people say what they want about the story, because that's the big controversy, but I think gameplay is where the game really shines. I think the gameplay really improved on the first game, and I think it was very fluid. I think the animation was just phenomenal. It was very gory, and I always appreciate that as a horror fan. And
yeah, I think that there's just what blew me away about the animations when it comes to combat is if you look at Ellie's face or spoilers Abby's face, like later in the game, like just look at their facial animations and expressions as they're killing someone. Like I know it's hard to look for some of us, but like it is so impressive, the mocap work. I mean, Naughty Dog, this is what Naughty Dog is known for, right? Their mocap work, their industry leading mocap stuff. But it's just incredible. The grimaces that Ellie has, the sort of flashes of anger that Abby has. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah,
I like that.
I think one small.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one small detail that a lot of people, I mean, at least that I haven't seen online a lot, is that in Abby's section of the game, I think it's after, it's somewhere around after she either meets Lev and Yara or after she saves Lev and Yara from the sort of construction yard. Like Abby's stealth takedown animations change from just grabbing them and snapping their neck to like just sort of choking them out, which I think is like a nice sort of subliminal sort of way of like the designers sort of saying that, hey, she's a bit less violent and brutal, like meeting Lev and Yara actually changed her for the better. And she's sort of on that path to redemption, which, obviously Ellie doesn't get onto much later in the game.
Yeah, I actually noticed that. I was just doing my New Game Plus hard mode, and I think I'm going to leave off where I am, which is on just about done with the island, because there's not many more encounters left for me to really challenge myself on. But I noticed that as well, that she kind of just like puts them to sleep and she doesn't crack their neck. I don't know if that's a direct thing, but I also noticed that and thought that was weird. So that's a good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So now what did you guys dislike about the game? Like, that's what I'm curious about, because I'm sure everybody here pretty much has this game as the game of the year so far. So
yeah.
So I mean, so it doesn't like it's just a sunshine and rainbows the entire podcast.
I gotta say, like, going back on Hard Plus, when you can make fewer mistakes, this criticism doesn't apply as much to normal, but the physical combat is still a little wonky sometimes. There's still a few too many times where you think you have the drop on the enemy and they just get animation priority over you. This is especially problematic with the dogs, who even if you think you've got the drop on them, they can just tackle you to the ground. So there's still, this is not a major criticism, but if I did have one big thing, It'd probably be the physical combat is still sometimes a little wonky. It's still the best it's ever been, and I think it's probably as good as it'll be. Maybe I don't know. It'd be tough to improve for Naughty Dog on this one, but there's still times where it just doesn't. It feels like you're gluing yourself to your enemy. It feels a little unnatural, but this is nitpicking, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, for me, like the only sort of thing I can think of is something that's been criticized sort of quite commonly is the pacing, especially towards that second half. Like it does get a little slow when you just want to know, like when you just want to know what happens in the next story beat, but you have to go through all 3 days again as Abby. It does get a little slow and draining, but at the same time, because of the way the story is structured and like there's all these twists that you have to reveal at the right times, I don't see any way around that, you know.
Yeah, I think I think it's the pacing is a problem, but I think it's a necessary evil, and I also think it's part of the story that Naughty Dog is trying to tell you. When you're in Santa Barbara, for example, like you are supposed to be exhausted and tired of Ellie, and just like get your shit together, like seriously, like just stop this, like stay with Dina.
I get that, but at the same time, I didn't like that like all of a sudden like you go right to Abby's story right at like a big moment happens like Tommy get not Tommy what was the Asian guy's name?
Jesse.
He gets shot in the face like immediately, and then Abby captures them, and then it's like it goes right to Abby's story for like 10 hours, whatever it was, 10-15 hours. I didn't like that you played as Ellie like 70% of the game, and then all of a sudden you only play as Ellie until like the last 2 chapters. If it was up to me, I probably would have combined their 2 stories and then had it all lead to one point instead of like showing all of Ellie's story and then showing all of Abby's story. If they're like interwoven together, I think.
But like I was, I see your point, but like I was saying, like there's no way to really do that and have all the twists and turns of the story happen at the right time, you know.
Right. I get that.
It's such a complex thing. Oh, sorry, Mitch.
No,
okay. I was just gonna say.
Yeah, you go.
It's just a complex thing, right? So you got to switch back and forth. Neil Druckmann was talking about the process for that, and him and Hallie Gross, who by the way should also be mentioned as the terrific co-writer. She wrote for I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's wonderful, Westworld. So they co-wrote this stuff, and just having those time sequences interweave. I was playing this with my partner, and she was getting a little confused here and there. I was feeling pretty much on top of the timeline stuff, but this stuff's really hard to like write back and forth. Like the callbacks are really nice when you're as Ellie, and you're like and you're fighting those people trying to get to Nora, and everyone are like, "What the hell is the power doing on?" And then later, you as Abby, before you fight the Rat King, turn on the power, right? Like those little nods.
I didn't catch that.
You're right.
Yeah, those little nods. I agree. It could have been done better, Seb. There's always improvements.
I mean, you guys are right, but it's that way because they wrote it that way. You know, like if they wanted to interwove the pacing like that and the cute character stories like that, it would have been different. Like I get you guys are right about that, but I think pacing issues though.
One thing I want to bring up as well that I found quite cool about the way the game, the story is sort of laid out, is the fact that like you've got all those twists and turns that happen, and like all these things that you see when you're playing as Abby, that when you go back to do New Game Plus, you see like these, you hear the enemies talking when you're playing as Ellie again and stuff like that, and you think you hear them talking about like at the hospital, like you know, where did Abby go when you capture Abby or whatever. And that'll suddenly make sense. So it gives that second playthrough, like a reason to. It gives it more like because the story's so dependent on spoilers and twists and turns. So when you know all of them, it gives it that extra layer to keep it engaging.
Right. And the thing is, go ahead.
Oh, you go.
You go ahead.
I was just about to say before I say my main criticism with the game overall, I'll pass it off to Fran to see what he sort of dislikes.
Yeah, Fran, what do you dislike about the game?
My main dislike was kind of along the same lines as what you guys have been saying, but the like unexpected twist with Abby. As much as I enjoyed it, there was kind of things that I was like, oh yeah, I want to get the upgrade for that gun. And I was kind of planning out what guns like I was going to upgrade and stuff, and then they kind of you don't play as Ellie for like, you know, hours on end, and you just kind of forget. So I had a problem with like it was quite unexpected.
The progression
and
restart, yeah.
you know, it's good as well as bad because a mix between story and gameplay. Yeah.
But the one thing I really enjoyed about Abby's storyline though is that like I love how survival horror it got. Like a lot of the sections felt like a Resident Evil game. Like,
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
especially under like the hospital, that boss fight.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was
my favorite part of the game. That was my favorite part of the game. Like,
Oh man, that was my least favorite part of the
Oh, I
game.
know.
So that's fun.
I'm a huge survival horror fan. That's why.
I just want to say, just real brief, and then Fran, if you have anything to add after this, definitely. But I just wanted to say very briefly, I found that part so annoying, and the boss is difficulty agnostic. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but basically, it doesn't matter what difficulty you're on. The Rat King will kill you in one hit if he grabs you.
Sure.
I guess it's the same thing for bloaters, but man, it was so, for me anyway, and I'm not playing with like a 4K HD TV, so maybe I don't know, maybe I just have bad lighting.
Mhm.
But the lighting was terrible. I couldn't really see what I was going. I was running like a mad person underneath the hospital, and I just kept running right into the freaking Rat King, and it was so annoying. I'd like instant die, and I'd be like, "Oh come on! Like how was I supposed to see him?" So that I hated that part.
The environment. Yeah, that was the main. I kept getting caught in the environment, so then I just sort of got, forced into a corner and just like, oh, I can't stop this.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. I didn't have that problem. Like, I could see all the environment and everything, maybe a brightness or HDR setting, but I really liked how they had all them rooms that you could duck into for resources, and you could take the time to craft while like it tried to squeeze through the doorway and
I
stuff
actually
like that.
saw that.
Oh, yep.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I mean, like, my strategy on Hard Plus, chuck all of my pipe bombs, all of my incendiary explosive shotgun ammo, and then a few clips of my hunting pistol, and I did it in like 2 tries.
Mhm.
Just threw it like wild. I was like, pipe bomb, like just take everything I've got, and then it worked out great. But when you don't know how resilient that frickin' boss is and how frickin' resilient the super stalker is, man, it can be really annoying. It was much better the second time when I knew what was going on, but going in there blind is rough.
I think what made it harder was the extra enemies that it spawned, like the
Yes.
body, like that was because they
me.
And that's...
Plus, you can't kill the damn thing in the first room. They make it seem like you can kill it in the first room, so you waste some ammo on it, and then you're like, "What? It's like completely impervious."
And one of the things I loved about one of the things I loved of the game was the new enemy of like the stalkers, like the where they peek over the corners and stuff. Like that was scary. I love that.
I think
one of my favorite.
Weren't the stalkers in something before, like Left Behind or something?
Yeah,
like that?
the stalkers were in the main game.
Oh yeah,
they just didn't get like an actual introduction. They just sort of showed up in the sewer segment.
Which is,
and then...
I gotta say, that's very on brand for stalkers. They weren't introduced; they just kind of showed up. They're like, "Hey, we're here." I didn't even know they were in the main game. I was really surprised when someone was like, "No."
Everyone kind of just forgot.
Yeah. So and the most fun thing you can do is like throw a bottle in the hallway, and all the stalkers will go like, "What's this?" And then you'll be like, "It's a Molotov." And just like throw a Molotov at all of them. It's great. You get at least 2 or 3.
That's right.
But it's great.
That's what I did.
I think to get back just quickly to like the main criticism I had for the game, and it's kind of outside of the game, and I definitely don't have as much problems with it as other people do. But the marketing, I think, kind of. It could have, like, I totally get what they were going for, and, Naughty Dog have sort of, I don't want to say misled customers before, but they have definitely, like, altered footage to sort of, show you one thing only to give you another.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of, like, in hindsight, I think it definitely could have come off as, like, I think the main thing people point to is is in the trailer, Joel saying, you think I'd let you do this on your own, and then in the actual game it's Jesse. I think I don't like if that bit was completely taken out of the trailers and marketing. I don't think people have nearly as much a problem with it. But Naughty Dog did, and it's just like I don't really know what their sort of reasoning behind that was as much.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they marketed Last of Us 1 was that you could only play as Joel the whole time, right? And then you got that switch with Ellie towards the... I just think, and I'm not justifying necessarily, I'm kind of cool with that manipulation, because I think, honestly, all storytelling comes down to psychological manipulation on a basic level. But, I mean, Naughty Dog have lied before about their games, and I'm not saying that as a criticism, but, like, that moment where you get to play as Ellie is so cool because you don't know it's coming. Now, the Jesse thing is nowhere on that level of coolness of like, oh my god, I get to play as Ellie in the first game. Yeah. But it's still fascinating that they are so committed to their own story that they will literally fabricate lines. Think about the steps you have to go through that. Like the lines, the graphics, the character model, like anyway,
literally having to bring in Troy Baker, just having to bring him into the studio just to record one line.
Troy's like, I better get a tip for this or something.
Sorry, we were talking about this a bit earlier as well, Mitch. But like one anecdote I have about that is, I got it spoiled for me on Twitter. Somebody said something I read said Joel died. And because of that marketing, I sort of just assumed, oh yeah, okay, he dies, but he dies way later on in the game if he's going to die. And so when his actual death part of the game like rolled around, I thought, okay, yeah, he's not going to die here. This is way too soon. He's going to make it out, he's going to be saved or whatever. And so that moment was still had its impact for me.
But I was the exact same way.
But I will say that when that part got around and it was Jesse instead of Joel, I was like, you son of a bitch.
People forget that, like, Neil Druckmann, like, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago,
I think
at a PlayStation event, he literally admitted that, like, this storyline is going to piss people off. Like, he knew it was controversial. I think that was a PlayStation event. So, Fran, you going to say something?
The spoilers, because I managed to avoid like most stuff. I managed to avoid like most of the spoilers and stuff. So when it did come around to stuff like Joel dying or you play as Abby for half the game, I still had that kind of surprise. And I think something that they do to kind of ease the kind of surprise of playing as Abby for half the game is making her bits really enjoyable. So like for me, most of my favorite sections of the game and like the big set pieces are playing as Abby. Like the sky bridge or the escape from the island. And I think as well her weapons are cooler than what you get as Ellie, so I think they try as well with the gameplay to make you enjoy playing as Abby more.
Yes, I definitely think that's part of it. Like you at the very beginning, you're like in this huge stadium, and then she's given like an assault rifle. She's given you go to a shooting range. Something interesting that someone said about trying to make Abby at least more. The Helly Gross and Neil Druckmann kind of had a discussion with this on the Game Informer podcast recently, but they want to go for vulnerability over likability, which I very much agree with. I think that you need your characters first and foremost to seem like real people or real characters and consistent more than you need them to be, hey, I'm a cool character that you can relate to at all times, right? But to the extent that they did do that with Abby, something kind of funny someone pointed out was like, think about the history of collecting coins in video games, right? That's like a hero thing. But that's one of Abby's main gimmicks is like collecting coins from all these different states. Right. I just thought that was so interesting. Not my own observation, but very interesting that I doubt they thought that freaking subliminally. And if they did, I mean, kudos. Right. But like, yeah, I don't know. That's just something interesting.
That's nuts. Next thing she's going to turn around and start jumping through pipes.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, she's got the muscles for a plumber. Okay.
I liked her abilities where she can like punch things. She like Falco punches like the enemies and stuff, and stomp on them and things like that. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, the stomps are so satisfying.
Yeah, no. I was a little surprised when she started jumping on Goombas and stomping on them, but
very weird when she decided to rescue Princess Peach. But I was like, you know what? Whatever. Her princess is in this
bold move.
Hey, he said this would piss some people off.
One thing we didn't talk about yet. One thing we haven't talked about yet, which is one of my favorite parts of the game, was the Seraphite cult. Like I love how creepy they are when they whistle at you and when they whistle at each other and like hunt you down.
I honestly don't think we got enough of them in the game. Like, I mean, maybe it's because I missed it in, like, documents and stuff, but I still feel there's a lot more to go, to delve into the cult, like especially their leader and how, they came to power and all that. Because I mean, I guess like we can kind of just assume that the WLF came into power because of their brute force, and also, because they gained new members outside of like from the Fireflies and Abby's group and all that, and obviously they had like, the weapons to sort of, exert their power. But I think with the Seraphites, there's definitely a lot more to get into with them, and I just don't think we got that, which, I'm a tad annoyed by, but like it's not, any major problem whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't impact the overall experience, but yeah,
I agree.
that's just me though.
So what do you guys think of like Lev's story and Yara's story? Do you think they killed off Yara like too quick, or were you fine with that?
I really adored Lev. I definitely have some biases as a trans person myself, but there have also been some LGBT folks who have not cared for the sort of trans rep in that game. I do think it was great handled there. I did like Yara. I thought that, I mean, this is a game, and I've been talking about this with a few other people today, full of ignoble deaths, right? That they're just, people don't die gloriously, or they don't have, walking away from big buildings that are exploding behind them, not even looking at the building. Like, who cares, right? It's just, that's not the kind of game this is. So I was surprised they killed Yara, but I mean, after Manny, after Jesse, I mean, and after Joel, I mean, it's just tough to be surprised that they drop her like that. I love both of them though. I thought they were great, and Lev is like my second favorite character in this game.
I was sort of indifferent to Yara and Lev, because I feel like just because they didn't get enough screen time for me to form an attachment to them.
I mean, I think Lev for me is just so endearing, and I think his fish out of water is handled well, because it doesn't make him seem like an idiot. It just makes the cult come off as very sheltered, right? It doesn't seem to blame Lev for their problems, and I definitely agree. By the way, the cult should have been. Oh boy, that would have sounded bad. Maybe we'll edit that out. But the cult should have been expanded upon. Don't edit that out, because that's actually pretty funny. But yeah, I agree. They should have had more stuff. There is some interesting things, like when you're on the island, there's some papers about, there's like these two Seraphites who have a forbidden love and are kind of talking about it and feeling like very sinful and stuff. And so that's interesting that these people are not just like brainwashed cult members, right? They have individual personalities, but there's not enough of them, for sure.
I think besides Control, this game is probably like the best example of world building in a video game that I've seen like in a long while. Yeah. Just because, like as you said, with Lev and how he came off as like, like a fish out of water, it both informs his own character, but it also informs, the greater world and the character of the Seraphites and sort of how they operate, and sort of makes the player like, consider it and think, oh, okay, so they operate more so like this, and that's probably, it's just great writing.
Right. I mean, a lot of people thought Abby was going to be a trans person for a long time. A lot of people still do, ignorantly, but what they like about Lev though is that his story was like, it wasn't on the nose, like it was very subtle for the most part. Like we didn't really know, like we knew because we knew the behind the scenes, but like in the game, you really didn't know he was a trans person until like, pretty far into their story, And then it's like, it's subtly shown.
It's basically during like day 2, where a Seraphite member like that names him, and I had a weird reaction to that, because I knew there was a trans character in the game, but I didn't know who it was, and so when that happened, I was obviously grossed out that they were dead naming him. But I was also really excited, because I was like, oh my god, this is the trans character, and I was already starting to like Lev, and so I got real excited, but at a really weird moment, where everyone's like, wow, it's awful that they did that. I'm like, yeah, but like, they're basically a religious cult, and like, I wouldn't expect them to call Lev by his name. So, I mean, like, I don't expect them to ease up on trans folks just because we're trans. I mean, that's not the real way the world works now either. So
people thought it was pushing like a strong like political agenda, but like in the story it's very it's pretty subtle, it's not like it doesn't preach.
It's just about human connection. There's no political,
preaching,
I'm sure there are political themes you can get out of this, but like, there's no. They're not saying. They're not saying any particular people who are currently in power are bad or anything. Like, there's nothing like that.
No, there's much. Like, obviously, like, I'm not, the general audience for, like, LGBTQ and, like, trans communities and all that. I'm, straight, cis, white male, whatever. But I think, just from that outsider perspective, I think there's definitely media that does it badly. And, from what I've seen, this isn't, one of those, pieces of media. It handles it. I want to say more respectfully. Obviously, like, feel free to correct me, but
Yeah, I mean, I've seen plenty of entertainment media try to be more inclusive in recent years, and I really feel like Last of Us 2 does a solid job. It's not like there couldn't be better representation, right? I think there's a conversation to be had about the way that people of color in the Last of Us series have generally been killed off. But I think by and large, Neil Druckmann and co. I think having Hallie Gross there really helps too. I mean, I think they've done a real good. And the guy who voices Lev is himself a trans man, so which is great. That should be the norm, but unfortunately, it's commendable. So yeah, I think they do a decent job here. I mean, there's certainly room for debate about that, but that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, it's not pandering, Like, that's one thing I don't like about a lot of these companies. Like, they pretend they're all progressive and hip, but they're just doing it for the money. So they like overcompensate. Like, the whole character's identity comes through being LGBT in the LGBT community. You know what I mean? Like, they won't make the character 3-dimensional. To be the whole story about them being gay in some way. Like, that's what Marvel did with their comics for the longest time in the last 10 years. And it's it's just pandering. Like, it doesn't feel genuine. So that's what I appreciated about that. So what else could we talk about? What do you guys think about the trophy list and all the collectibles?
I like the fact that they didn't have they didn't have trophies for difficulty settings this time around. It was just for completing the game.
People were mad.
Really?
Yeah.
I was one of those people.
I think I like that it makes the platinum trophy more accessible. If if you're not a big gamer who doesn't play a lot of these games, you could still in theory get the platinum trophy.
Right.
I think it's nice that anybody can get the platinum, but I think one of the biggest things for me was I spent ages getting the platinum for the first game. I remember for some reason I played it on every difficulty, even though I could have played it on the hardest one and got all the trophies out in one go. But I decided to do it one by one. So it was a journey for me getting the first platinum. So for this one to be over in a week, I don't know. I didn't know how I feel about it. I was not super happy about it, but
that's fair.
I don't really tend to platinum games, so it doesn't really matter to me too much. But I do appreciate the accessibility.
Right. I mean, as a trophy whore myself, I appreciate easy platinum because I have 224, so including that one. So I was pretty happy with the not having any multiplayer trophies. I always didn't like that about the first one.
So we don't have any multiplayer at all yet.
Yeah,
so that definitely helps.
Good luck on that.
Right. So I know a lot of people were mad that there was no difficulty trophies. I don't know why. Bragging, right? I mean, I beat the first game on Grounded Plus, so it's not like I'm trying to impress
humble brag.
Yeah, humble brag.
I mean, I'm really impressed with you, Seb. Right now, go send a letter to Neil Druckmann.
I've gone.
Yeah, I mean, I've played most of it at this point on Hard Plus, and I feel pretty satisfied with doing that much. And I don't personally, I don't feel the need to play it on Survivor or whatever. But I understand everyone's different. Sorry, Mitch. I hope I didn't cut you off there.
Fine. I might actually just quickly, talk about Survivor for a second. It's I typically go for the harder difficulties because of trophies. I'm like, okay, I can endure this, and then I can get, a quick reward out of a trophy, whether it be gold or silver or whatever. So, I'm a bit, annoyed that there's no reward for the harder difficulties, but, oh well, that doesn't annoy me too much. Yeah. But I think the best thing the best biggest compliment I could say for Survivor in the first game, and I'd say it's the same for part 2, but I haven't played on Survivor yet, is that it removes the listen mode, so it fundamentally changes the way I played and you played in you played The Last of Us. Instead of before we could just enter an arena and put on hold down R1 and go, okay, there are people here, here, and here, I'll go in this way. Instead you got to take your time a lot more. Especially in the first game, and if you memorize enemy placement, that helps a lot too. But I think it definitely works in actually making you feel like a survivor in that world and immersing you even further into that world. And it made me appreciate the combat in a completely different way.
Well, before we move on real quick, I have a hot take, okay?
No worries.
I actually, brace yourselves. No, I actually don't think that the game needs trophies to begin with, because
really?
Trophies. Listen, I love trophies, right? Trophies are great. I've platinumed a ton of games, Borderlands, Spider-Man, whatever. But at the same time, there are some games that are sort of gamier, like those games, that have loads of different levels of things you can do and that sort of thing. But I think there are some games like The Last of Us where there doesn't need to be an extra level of entertainment beyond what it is.
Right.
I mean, I feel like
I'll add to your controversial opinion that the fact that there was tons of collectibles, and I thought there was too many collectibles, way too many. That I spent a lot of my first time playing actually getting all the collectibles in one playthrough, to the fact that I was following a guide just to know where the collectibles were. So they kind of
and that's the thing. I don't mind collectibles in that world, because it adds a bit more. It adds some world building, right? But having a trophy to collect all of them, that feels like you're replaying the game at that point just to go for these trophies.
Yeah, that bothers me as well. As somebody who's fairly obsessive about all of the space that I'm exploring in a game, not getting that trophy, even by the time. And also another thing this is such a niche comment, but all the collectibles that you get in the first game don't carry over to the second when you do New Game Plus. So, for example, the collector's cards, I can't tell which ones I have and which ones I don't just by memory, because they're all still there as if I never collected them. So that can be confusing. It's such a niche criticism, but yeah, it's slightly annoying.
I'm pretty sure. I think I was having a look through the settings. And there's a setting that you can actually enable that says whether you've got that collectible before or not.
Oh, damn. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I actually did hear about that before. That's a good catch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we take a second to just appreciate the accessibility menu? Because hot damn, I gotta say, as an autistic person who has no sense of space or directionality, having that little arrow that's hey, you dumbass, over here, that was so helpful. I already played the main game for 28 hours. I can't tell you, I would have gotten to 30 hours or 30 plus if it hadn't been for that little arrow. It was the little arrow that could, and I appreciated the heck out of it.
And there's sorry, Seb, there's some other stuff as well, some little things being able to turn off weapon sway, or being able to auto loot stuff that is meant for accessibility, but at the same time you can just use that as a quality of life thing if you can't be bothered doing that stuff.
And the stuff for people who have color blindness is amazing. I mean, there's literally footage out there of people who are deaf or people who otherwise disabled in some way, who just are crying looking at the game, because they can actually play a freaking video game. Amazing.
I wonder how much like effort all that stuff took to put in as well.
It's got to be huge.
Yeah,
because choice is always great. I mean, no one forces you to play with auto aim on, you know. Because a lot of people frown upon auto aim just because, oh, you're just a noob. You don't know, you can't play games. But like, it was totally optional, so I don't see why people were getting like that.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great as an accessibility option for people who have trouble playing it without that.
I mean, did you guys play with auto aim at all, or like? Because I know the weapon sway was pretty difficult. Like,
no, I didn't, man. I'm a hardcore gamer. I'm okay.
Number one gamer right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either. I played pretty much actually. So I pre-ordered it a couple days. No, once the reviews went up, and I was pretty convinced I needed to experience it, even if I ended up not liking it. And I actually turned off some of my, this was terrific. This is such a stupid small thing to be excited about, but the pre-order gives you some benefits to your gear when you start the game. I was like, I don't want that. That just feels like cheating and this is personal, by the way. I don't judge other people, but like to me that felt cheap or like cheat. Like I don't want those advantages. And the game actually lets you not have them in the game if you don't want to, if you feel like it's unfair. I'm like, that's mind blowing. I can't believe that they thought of that.
Right.
Who would think of that?
Right.
Like, hey, you bought this thing, you get these benefits, but if you don't want the benefits, I'm like, okay, awesome. That's great.
There was one thing I liked and disliked. I did like the fact that the NPCs were like smart and that like once you kill one of their friends, they would cry for them or whatever. But at the same time, they want me to feel bad for people, but like Ellie just killed thousands of people, so like I'm
but like not
bad.
I like how that wasn't just like a face value thing where it's like, oh, they're crying out their friends' names, you have to feel bad now. I like how that sort of tied into when you go and play as Abby and you meet those people.
That's true.
Especially like the dogs as well.
That's fair.
Especially
Bear.
Right. Oh, the dog killed me. That when she kills the dog, the dog. Oh my god.
How did everybody do on the dog stuff? Because I actually work with dogs, so I mean, that wasn't fun for me.
It didn't have. Sorry, on you, Seb.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, it didn't have that big an impact on me, not as much as I hoped it would, at least.
I actually found myself surprisingly not super like the whimpers is really what got me, but like actually having to defend myself against a dog who wants to kill me just didn't bother me the way it bothered other people. I just didn't find that criticism or I didn't find that warranted.
Fight or flight sort of thing.
Right. As somebody who's had many dogs in my life, and I have 5 dogs right now, like I'm a huge dog lover, but
I think I just heard one of them barking.
But it's a video game. Yeah, my dogs are always barking. It's a video game, so it didn't really bother me at all. Like I'm pretty scarred. Like I've been playing rated M games my whole life, like even since I was like 3. So like I'm pretty. Nothing really phases me. So
how did you guys? What do you do when you had to throw the ball for bear? Did any of you guys throw it over the fence?
No.
Wait, you can do that?
Yeah.
Wait, what? That's so cruel. Holy shit, James. Did you do that?
That's the worst thing I've ever.
I throw it back in.
Oh my god. What did you say, Fran?
You can't throw it back in as well, so once it's gone, it's gone.
Oh my god.
You monster.
We found the true villain of the game, everyone. Holy cow. I don't know. I don't know about this whole there are no real heroes or villains in this game because whoever the heck did that to Bear is a villain.
So we haven't talked about this yet. What did you guys think of the ending? Because the ending is very controversial. Like that's what really irritates people. This is like the Last Jedi of like divide right now on the ending.
I feel like I was my emotions were running parallel to Ellie's like right throughout the whole game. And so when it got to that part where it was that last boss fight, well, I say boss fight, it's not really a boss fight, but that last fight with Abby, and like you see that vision of Joel, like he's beat up on his deathbed and everything, and it's like that. I'd sort of reminded myself earlier in the game when I was playing as Abby and everything, like I'd reminded myself of Joel's death, and I was like that sort of remotivated me on like Ellie's sort of quest. And so, like, when that sort of came up, when that flashback sort of came up in that fight again, I sort of had the similar thing where it's like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm here. Let's finish this. And then, like, when that second flashback came up, and it's not Joel dying with a beaten up with a bloody face. It's him outside his house strumming a guitar. I had a similar reaction, I think, to what Ellie had, where it's like, okay, maybe I can remember a better version of Joel.
Right.
And so maybe I can be okay with letting Abby go.
So what do you think?
And maybe I can
Fran, what do you think of the end?
Better version of myself.
I see a lot of criticisms about it where it's like, you've come all this way to end it, and then right at the end she doesn't. But for me, like what you said a minute ago, I felt the same at that moment. Like I thought, I've just gone through this whole section as Abby, and I played the beginning as Ellie. I didn't think either of them were a hero. They both equally did bad things. If you look, like Ellie kills more of Abby's friends and stuff than Abby does, and I know like Joel's a big character, but more damage is done to Abby than is done to Ellie. And I think that no one's a hero, and by not killing anybody at the end, it's the justice. Like no one's good, so I mean, like no one should die at that end point. And
I just don't know, like what's the alternative really? Like some people are clamoring for like, oh come on, why didn't Ellie kill Abby? And it's like, no, like that's not the point of the story. Like the whole point of the story is that cyclical violence does not bring people closer to feeling whole, right? Like that's the whole point of Abby's story. Is like Abby is where it starts, where Ellie is ending at the game, right? Abby is thinking, okay, I got my revenge on Joel. I can stop having these nightmares about my dad. Boom. She like is still besieged by nightmares every night. It doesn't bring her peace, and that's the whole point of the game. And people are still clamoring for Abby to die because Sad Dad died, and it's like, come on, like I love me a good Sad Dad game, but like, come on, like that's not the point of the game. The point isn't for Ellie to get that revenge.
There are so many levels to it as well. Like if you think about it, at the start of the game, you've got Abby getting her revenge, killing Joel, and then by the end of the game, she's got Lev. She's got this thing that actually does give her a piece of herself back, like that she hoped killing Joel would. Right. And then like you've got Abby. Sorry, no, you've got Ellie, who's on this quest to kill Abby, and even though she doesn't do it in the end, she still loses Dina and JJ. So she doesn't get that sort of piece of herself. She loses that.
She realized
JJ, man.
She realized that she had a little piece of humanity left. Like she wasn't totally a monster. Like she realized at the last second, like I've gone way too far. But they really punished her though. Like she can't even play guitar anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You can teach yourself to play.
You can, but it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it's super difficult. It's muscle memory is the problem. Sorry, Mitch. What were we gonna say?
Go ahead, Mitch.
No, I was just gonna say it's like to sort of back to if Ellie killed Abby, just to propose an alternate universe or an alternate game where in the ending she did kill Abby and she did get her revenge. If we got a part 3, I wouldn't be surprised if it just opened the exact same way as part 2, where you've got Ellie, she's a bit more grown up, then all of a sudden Lev just sort of comes in and kills her, and then we'd have this exact same cycle of hate on the internet where people just say, you can't kill it off Ellie like that, that's disrespectful to the character.
Oh god.
Well, Ellie was if she killed her, she would have passed the point of no return. Like there's no way Ellie could have ever gone back to
the whole point of not killing Abby is and I do want to say, by the way, there was originally Ellie was going to kill Abby.
I saw that.
On the Game Informer podcast I've referenced a couple times now, they talked about that they were originally going to have Ellie kill Abby, but decided that they wanted to have some semblance of hope for Ellie to be a better person. And I also want to say, even if you don't really like Lev, which is totally fine, Lev is basically the frickin' partly the hero, right? If Lev hadn't intervened, Dina would have died, JJ would have died, Ellie might have died, Abby might have killed Ellie at the end. We don't even know. Like Lev is so crucial to the plot, even if you don't like his character, which again is fine, but he's so crucial to Abby being a better person. And ironically, Ellie is important to Abby and Lev living, right? Like if she hadn't come there to take her revenge, Abby and Lev would have died, probably, right? I mean, maybe the prisoners would have broken out and freed people, but it doesn't look like it. It looked like they were going to kill the slavers. So,
how did you guys feel about when Ellie left Dina and the baby? Like, did you agree with her? Or were you like,
So I have a lot. I'm sure we all have a lot of thoughts about this. When the theater, when the Seattle Day 3 thing was finished, and we cut back to the farm, I thought that was the ending. I think a lot of people thought that was the ending. And I was disappointed in that moment because I thought, this is cliche. This is like a happy ending, and that doesn't fit in this world, right? I would have been happy if the game had ended when like they're still on the farm, but we know that Ellie has PTSD, because that feels still, at least there's something. At least it's not a totally happy ending.
Right.
Sort of leaves it the same way ambiguous as like the end of the first game, where it's like, you know, you have, I guess you could say, closure from the main events of the game, but there's still something lingering that needs to be resolved.
I really thought when I really thought when Ellie has JJ on her lap and she's like, I got, you know, some stories to tell you, I got to tell them someday.
Yeah.
I'm like, credits, that's it, right? That's it right
exactly.
there. And they just kept going.
Fade to black.
Yeah, I was like fade to black. But I totally agree with James. Like if they had ended at the farm scene, people so badly want Ellie to have a happy ending or some sort of, you know, like trust me, nobody wants lesbian farm simulator more than me. But I'm sorry, y'all, that's not how The Last of Us Part 2 or The Last of Us as a universe, like James said, that's not how it works. Like, if we got that universe, I guarantee you, most games critics, even a lot of gamers, I think, would feel, this is not The Last of Us. This doesn't end so happily. How does Ellie get away with this? How does she get to live with Dina like this and just carry on naturally, right?
Right.
So I think that, you know, I as much as a lot of us would have loved, quote unquote, for it to land there, I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad that we end up going to Santa Barbara.
So with that said, would you guys want a part 3?
No.
No.
No. I maybe could go either way now, but when I ended that game, it's funny, when I ended the first game, I thought, okay, I don't want another game because this ending is so perfect.
Yeah.
Why add anything else onto it? The reason that I didn't want a part 3 when I finished part 2 was totally different. It was like, I'm at my wit's end here, you know, I feel beaten down, I've had enough. That's plenty for me. Thank you.
Yeah. I think sort of as you said, James, it's like part 1, it ended more so on a cliffhanger, whereas part 2, it definitely ended, like, it had closure. It was a bittersweet ending. It didn't leave things really, like, on a cliffhanger. Like, there's still, you know, threads that they can continue with Abby and Lev, and obviously, you know, what Ellie's going to do. But it's like, I don't think that justifies a part 3 enough. Like, I think, like, I mean, I can definitely talk about this in a feature in the future, but I think there's definitely other ways Naughty Dog can go about continuing Abby and Lev's story in the future, but I don't think that's enough to justify a full third game. Like, unless they obviously, if they do make a third game, they're going to have a reason. I definitely trust them in that, you know, aspect. But
the only tiny reason that I would want a part 3, I think, is a weird thing, but like, there was a lot of inspiration taken, I think Neil Druckmann said, from The Godfather. So like, I would want maybe a part 3 so that they could make it a trilogy and be sort of follow that parallel.
That way with Godfather though. Part 3 is the worst one, so.
I disagree with that, actually. I liked part 3 quite a lot.
Oh boy, here we go. Godfather podcast, everybody. I just want to, I agree with James on a lot of that. By the end of, I replayed The Last of Us Part 1 in advance, I think as many people did. Because my partner had never seen it and I wanted to get a refresher, and it was great. And the game is excellent. The experience was great. The game is excellent. And at the end of it, I'm like, damn, it still feels like we really don't need a Last of Us Part 2. And honestly, I wasn't hyped for this game as much as I wanted to be, because I was like, I just don't see it. I don't see it, Neil. Like, I don't get it. I don't think we need another game. I'm not sure why you're doing this. And I see, you know, the first 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm in. I don't know where this is going. I don't know if I like this, but I'm in. Like, you're selling me. This is definitely something seemingly important. By the end of Last of Us Part 2, I don't know. The only thing I can think of for a part 3, and I'm not even sure I'd want it, is a Lev and Abby story about joining up with the Fireflies and trying to see if they can reverse what's happened. But that's a cliche saving the world thing. I don't know if I even want that.
Exactly.
I think
if you think about it, though, the first game was a cliche saving the world.
No, I know. I know. And the only reason they got away with it is because it wasn't. So I really recommend everyone check out the Tim Rogers review of The Last of Us Part 1. But his point is that, yes, the plot is about the cliche saving the world stuff, but the story is about about like a father and daughter relationship. And I think the plot here for part 2 is revenge, but the story is like, cycles of violence, forgiveness, redemption, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I only want part 3 because I want more Lev and I want more Abby, but who is number 1 character. You can at me if you want. And I don't know. I think that's the only reason I really want a part 3 is because more Lev, more Abby.
Right.
Because I think the boat during the after you beat the game, you see on the start screen that the boat did reach Catalina Island. So
Gotcha.
it's
Does
implied that they're
anybody
still
else
alive.
wish that they can? Yeah. Does anybody else wish that they can like revert the title screen back to like
Yeah, that would be
like,
nice.
Because I really liked that opening scene, just with it in the water and the.
Also, like if I'm deciding I want to play the game with somebody who's never played it before, I have to
Yeah.
like make a new account to get the old start screen back so
mean-
that it doesn't spoil anything.
Cheat codes for y'all. Just delete all your save files. There you go. Bam. Ha.
Oh,
Put it in
well,
the
okay,
cloud.
that's one way. I guess.
Just put it in the
There you
cloud
go.
and delete it.
Who cares? Yeah, put it in the cloud. Who cares?
But yeah, like I think the one nice thing is if they do decide to make a part 3, we can be sure that they're doing it for the right reasons. Because the one thing about part 2 is that the story's so you can tell that this was a story they wanted to tell instead of a story that they made up because they wanted to sell copies of this IP.
Right.
Yep.
So, Fran, do you think there should be a part 3?
I'm happy if they leave it where it is, but then I would also like a part 3. And I think a nice thing to point out about the ending, I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but as Ellie is leaving to go to Santa Barbara, Dina doesn't give her the bracelet, but when she comes back in the epilogue, she has the bracelet. So in my head, I'm imagining that she goes back to Dina and gets the bracelet, and that as she leaves the house at the end, she's going back. So I imagine if a part 3 happens, that she'll be with Dina, and kind of following the theme of like love and hate with the first 2 games. I wouldn't be surprised if the third one starts like the characters redeem themselves and it's about like redemption. So I don't know how this would be possible, seeing as the only person capable of making a cure is dead. But I can imagine Ellie trying to find some way to turn herself into a cure because she wants her life to matter, and Abby trying to redeem herself by working with the Fireflies to achieve that goal.
So that goes into my next question. Where do you think Ellie and Abby ended up? Like, where do you think, like, if there's no part 3, like, how do you think, what did they do the rest of their lives? Like, where do they end up?
I think like a lot of people seem to think that Ellie's like right after she puts the guitar down or walks out, Ellie just is going back to Jackson to find Dina and JJ. But I kind of think the opposite, that I think Ellie's just so broken from the experience that she's like that she sort of puts herself into like a self-imposed exile, just sort of wandering the lands, just sort of letting whatever happens. Because like I mean, when people are broken like that, they don't necessarily immediately go out to seek help. They go, they sort of punish themselves. And I think, Ellie, I mean, that might just be the vibe I got, but I think Ellie's definitely, once she realizes, how much terrible, shit she's done, she's kind of like, oh, okay, it's like, I've got to atone for my sins. I can't just immediately go back to happiness it's not like Jackson's going to like welcome me with open arms, let alone Dina and JJ.
Right, you can't even really get help. It's not like there's therapists out there now or anything like that. Or
well, there could be. You never know.
There's
a town, But no, I agree. I agree with you, Mitch. Like I feel like there's with all the stuff that went down, and with things like Tommy, who seemingly has some kind of grudge now, and and all that kind of thing. I feel like she wouldn't want to go back. She would. I think she's probably a nomad now.
And I think that references Joel in a way, right? I mean, Joel was a very solitary person, didn't like working with other people, traveled by himself. I mean, he went from Texas to Boston, right, in the first game. So I really think that she's just referencing. There's another interesting thing where she is trying to do with Owen and Mel earlier in the game. She's trying to get that thing that Joel does, where she gets them to point on a map and try to get them to corroborate each other's stories.
Yeah.
And but she fucks it up and ends up having to kill like both of them. But so I think she's definitely trying to echo Joel in some ways.
Right.
And it's hard not to, right? He had such a huge impact. But I think Abby and Lev end up in Catalina with the Fireflies, and Ellie, I think I agree with James, becomes something of a nomad. I don't, as much as I partially want her to be with Dina, I think the fact that all of Ellie's stuff is still in the house, that the CD that she and Dina listened to is right on top of the guitar. I wish the bracelet is interesting, and her lack of surprise that Dina is gone is interesting, but I don't know. It's too subtle for me to say one way. It just seems to be pointing towards Dina left, and she's just not surprised she left.
I'm not sure if it's like, I'm not sure if it's as much a lack of surprise, but just sort of, I mean, yeah, probably a lack of surprise, but more so in like, you know, the sense that it's like, yeah, of course they'd leave me. I've been, you know, like a terrible person. Why would they stay with me? You know, just sort of more like self-punishment and stuff.
I could see Dina forgiving her though too. Like if she truly loves her, like, just give her time.
Yeah, like it's definitely good. Yeah, sorry. But I think it's definitely, you know, as in a lot of cases in real life, that it's a sort of one of those moments where it's like, well, yeah, of course I'd forgive you. You just need to, you know, come to me and open yourself up and let yourself forgive you.
I think something really interesting to think about. There was a Twitter thread on this, and it's Joel really beat into Ellie's head that she needs to not talk about death. Right when Tess dies, he shuts it down. When Sam dies, they die. Sam and his brother, they die. He shuts that down. When she wants to talk about the baby that's at the grave with the teddy bear right near Jackson, like he shuts that down too. Like I think Joel really hurt her emotionally in terms of trying to shut down these difficult discussions, and now she just doesn't know how to talk about it. She journals, which by the way is a healthy coping mechanism, but she just doesn't know how to talk about her demons. And I think that's just such an important part. If you can't do that with the people you love, then I don't know how you're ever going to progress. So I think that's something she would need to do with Dina.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that at all. That's a good read.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite, you know, humanizing aspects of Ellie is that she tries to, like, you know, through her grief, she tries to craft song lyrics, and it's like, you know, you can see her like progressively crossing out lyrics more and more and more, and it's like it shows her mental decline in that sense, and it's like just such a great, you know, extra sort of way of contextualizing and sort of showing how she's kind of losing it a bit. She's, you know, she's going off the deep end by the end of Seattle Day 3, and it's like it's just such a great additional, like completely missable too. It's a completely missable sort of aspect that you know, it's like, because if I found out that there's like journal entries and pages I missed, I go back instantly and look at, like, even in the Santa Barbara chapters, I was like going through the journal like continuously, just going, okay, like, you know, what is she saying in her journal? And then it's like to the point about the journal. Oh, sorry, Mitch. No, I was finished. I was
okay. You go. I just want to say very quickly about the journal, and I think we're wrapping up here, but just very quickly, one interesting thing is that the journal was an addition to the game very late on, which is really weird to me.
Really?
And then the second is that I cried at two parts during this game, and they're both very weird. The first is I cried at the beginning of the game, just at the beginning, because I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe this is real. I'm playing this. Yeah. This is gorgeous. Yeah. And then the second time was in the journal when you are, I think when you're with Dina, it might be when you come back after Santa Barbara. I can't remember. It's one of the two. And you're looking at it, and it says something about the memory of Joel tasting like food poisoning or something. And like that just broke me. I don't know why, but like it spoke to me a lot as someone who struggles with my own internal stuff. Like that really got me. Just thinking about the journal.
Fran, you have anything to add to that?
I mean, to be honest, I cried at quite a few parts in the game.
Okay.
I think like every time that she played the first song that Jill sings on the guitar, every time Ellie played that throughout the game, and especially at the end when she can't play that, they really hit hard. It's like, she loses everything, and she loses her last memory of Joel playing that guitar. She loses that.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about was did you guys know the sniper was Tommy?
Yes.
Yeah. I figured that out.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe they didn't want you to figure that out until you actually saw him, but I figured that out pretty quickly on.
When he shot Manny, I actually applauded. That was like one of the that got me hyped.
I didn't hate Manny as much.
I didn't like him.
I didn't hate Manny as much as a lot of other people. I thought he was like, obviously he was.
I was like,
sorry.
Yeah.
I liked Manny quite a lot, and I hated the fact that I liked Manny because I was still pissed off about what he did.
I liked Manny as well, but I mean, it's hard to argue that he's not your kind of tropish scum. I'm not saying he's written poorly, although some of the overly injected Spanish is like, okay, we get it, Manny is Hispanic, but you're playing him a little cliche. But whatever. I did like Manny, and it did kind of pain me because he did seem kind of a little questionable with women. We're gonna say in terms of how he constantly picked up on him, but whatever. He seemed like generally a good guy, but yeah, I don't know.
And we also haven't talked about we didn't talk about Owen at all.
I was about to mention him. Yeah.
What a dork.
That's why I like him.
I did like Owen. Yeah.
He was like a sweet dork.
Owen's probably like the moral center of Abby's group in that he's like, even like before they left for Jackson and in Jackson, he was like, even though he wasn't, the de facto leader, he was basically calling the shots and being the only like rational person there. It's like, hey, it's like, you've got to finish this up now. It's like, they're going to be like on top of this quickly. We need to get out of here. And, it's like, let's not kill them. It's like, they've done nothing wrong. Let's not just, it's like, I think, I forget who said it, but it's like someone in that group said, it's like, we kill them, we're just as bad as he is.
Right, because that whole, like, scene on the island where they burned down the entire village, like, their boss like, went way overboard completely. So,
which is, like, why Owen left the group part, or left, in quotation marks, the group, because he's like, by that point, he kind of realized that it's like it's meaningless and it's just menial violence for the sake of menial violence.
That was one of the other hype moments when Yara was still alive and she killed the boss. Like, her last moments. I was like, yeah, get him.
He was played by Jeffrey Wright too. Like I saw him immediately. I'm like, no, there's no way that's Jeffrey Wright. But no, it's Jeffrey Wright. And I'm like, oh, they actually got a pretty. So I don't want to say a big Hollywood actor in there, but it's like he's fairly.
We're at about like an hour 20 minutes now. So one last thing I want to talk about is the reaction on the internet. Like, did that surprise you? Like
God, no.
It's so divisive. It's like
honestly, gamers have had such a historic issue with responding. I think what I'll say is very briefly. For a game that was criticized so often for being unnecessary because people get it that violence is bad and that we can handle big stories like this easily at this point, it sure doesn't seem like it when the whole internet is like, oh my god, you killed my favorite character, I'm gonna harass the voice actors and the director and be like so terrible. What's that, Mitch?
There like some people are even threatening like the actors' children as well. It's like that's
it's awful. So I think it's absolutely dreadful that people reacted the way they did. And there's for sure, I don't want to say that there's no legitimate criticism out there. There definitely is. Right. But the people who are saying all this stuff about, oh my god, SJWs or like their political, it's like, stop. Like, no, this is a great game and you don't have to agree with that. But I mean, like, stop, just stop it.
Yeah, they ruin it for everybody because negative people can't even have an opinion themselves anymore because now, like, if you have a criticism of the game, you get grouped with the crazy people, So
yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's tough. Like, death threats and all that fucking volatility aside, right? It pains me because, like, with any other game, it would be like, okay, it wouldn't get to me. It's like, okay, it's fine, whatever. People want to hate the game, fine. But like, this is one of the best games. This is one of my favorite games of the generation of all time. And like the fact that people can enjoy it because they're being so short-sighted about like not just opening their minds to the fact that maybe it's a good game
Yeah.
because of what they've heard or
It's
what
the
they've seen
leaks.
out of context.
So I think the leaks
It's
really
just-
ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame because like it's such a complicated and like a piece of art with so many levels,
Yeah,
and
don't
it's
get-
been sort of
yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? It's been sort of devalued,
Right, because like, don't get me wrong, like people didn't like the game, they didn't like the game, but I always respect people that actually tried it and played it. Like if you
Yeah.
didn't play it at all, and you're just going by what your favorite YouTuber said, or like whoever agrees with you, you just confirming your own bias. I respect people that didn't like it, or at least tried it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Seb. Do you think the 5,000 negative reviews on Metacritic
No,
that happened within
you're
the
wrong.
first, 5 minutes of it being released? Do you
That's
think
what I
maybe
mean.
they didn't play it?
Yeah, exactly. But even like, I don't even mean like.
Now listen, I'm sure
comments
they all have
were-
uncles who work at Sony who got them an early copy. Okay,
That's right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
because they're doing more damage for the negative people. Because you can, it's okay to not like the game, But like,
Yeah, for sure.
They
I also love like
Go ahead.
the feed. Like I called it as soon as the leaks dropped as well, but it's like this is just the Last Jedi 2.0.
It is.
Where it's like, people, it's the exact same arguments as well. It's like, they ruined my favorite characters. They put, SJW elements into it, yada, yada, yada. It's like, it's like we're just going to end up in 2 years' time with the exact same cycle. And like, they're even recycling the same arguments too, where like they're apparently saying it's like, oh, sales decreased such and such percent, in its second week. It's a failure. It's like, they dropped, but that's because it just sold so damn much in the first week. Everyone bought it.
Literally, IGN released a video today that says that the Last of Us Part 2 has sold more than any PS4 game in its first week in 2020. And I mean, that includes Final Fantasy VII Remake. So,
the ultimate irony, though, is that I actually hate The Last Jedi. And for all the reasons you mentioned, I don't like that movie at all. But at the same time, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this game. So it's like, it's kind of crazy. Just like how that works, but because it's different in Star Wars and like in Last of Us, it's that kind of world. It's that kind of world, like.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's like Star Wars is such a long running franchise, so people are obviously going to have different emotions and feelings towards characters and events. Because like I don't have the same connection, obviously, to people who literally grew up with the original Star Wars.
Right, because people love Joel for the last 7 years, but like Luke Skywalker and like Han Solo and things like that are on another level of.
Yeah, they've been around for little decades, so it's going to be different.
Years, yeah, so. But that's another time. Another day. So
we're getting sidetracked.
So, is there anything else you guys want to mention about this game as we wrap up? Like, is there anything that's standing out to you or that we forgot to talk about?
Give me my goddamn lesbian farm simulator, Naughty Dog. Come on.
DLC. We got DLC.
DLC. No, I just want to say this is an amazing game, and it's been a great conversation. So thanks everybody for having it, keeping it civil, all that stuff. Not that I wouldn't expect that, but honestly, this game, seriously, jeez.
For sure.
Oh man. Yeah.
I think it just sort of solidifies the fact that the opinion that like games are one of the best storytelling mediums out there. Because you could not have told this story as a movie or a TV show or anything like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like that's what I love about gaming. It's just like its own unique medium, Like you can do so much with it. Like we got a legit 30 plus hour experience,
Yeah, and like there's so much value in just being able to step into the character's shoes rather than just observing.
Right.
As well.
So
what about you, Fran? Oh yeah.
This is completely unrelated to anything. It will sound really strange, but I really like small details, and in every game I inspected the snow and the water obsessively. And it's like the best snow I've seen in the game so far. So they've done a good job with that.
If you want to get even more specific, right? How good was that like river? You know that when you're riding through like at the start of the game,
the first river,
the river in the snow, yeah.
I mean, I
the
probably spent like half an
crunch
hour
of the
there.
snow. I mean, come on.
It's like the horse hooves just sort of like getting on the ice and then having the ice like sort of break under it. That like it's such a like small insignificant detail, but it's like it just it's so good.
In terms of animation and environment, this is arguably the greatest game of all time. Like it's right up there with Red Dead Redemption 2. Like the minor details were just like I was just blown away. Like,
Actually,
Yeah, it's
I mean,
like- It's a question of whether those things are like worth it, but I think when they all add up,
yeah,
they really are. They really
Right.
sort of give the game a new level of quality.
right. But
Yeah, I do actually want to say one more thing, that it shouldn't be glossed over that to make this game, I mean, Jesus Christ, the amount of effort and time and sweat that the developers put in, and crunch especially, that should be
Yeah.
highlighted.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
something
which
this
is a whole
industry.
nother-
I would have waited, and I know this sounds wild, but I mean, I would have waited a couple more years if they would have given their employees a couple more vacations, because I mean, this
That's fair.
it
yeah.
just the amount of time and effort. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild.
It's the unfortunate
I think
part
at
of
this-
game culture, you know.
Yes, definitely.
like, I mean, crunch is a part of every game's development, and obviously, like, I don't know how much crunch was in this game particularly. Like, I mean, from what I've heard, there was definitely a lot more than usual, and
Right.
some people got burnt out, which is unfortunate, and
Yeah.
I can't necessarily like defend that and say, oh, tough luck, but it's like, yeah, no, I think it's just an unfortunate thing, and
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like it's just such an the way that this game came out and how polished and amazing it was in pretty much all aspects, arguably for some of them,
Yeah.
was just a testament to how great they are at their craft.
It's the same thing with Rockstar, because Rockstar got the same criticism, and then their games are just as detailed, you know. Because Naughty Dog and Rockstar are like the top two, really. Like, I would say,
Yeah,
in the community. So
the storytelling in games, yeah.
and so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because a lot of I don't know what their media sources are. Like, I don't know if it's all the hearsay. Like, you know,
Yeah,
somebody that got fired
I don't
is
know.
not happy.
Not to,
I
like-
really don't know.
Not to show off into a whole other discussion, but yeah, it's one of those tough things where it's like you can't do something like boycott the games, because that then you're not support. You still need to support all that hard work that they're doing.
Developers,
Yeah.
because they're not. It's
Yeah.
not their decisions. Like, even like EA or Ubisoft or something, or Activision, when they do something like really anti-consumer, it's not the artists or the developers that are making that decision. It's the executives.
It's the businessman.
We
It's the
group
businessman.
we group them all together though, in general.
Yeah, we just see we just see one studio label and just point all of our hate towards that.
Right. So we're going on another different topic. So is there anything
Yeah.
else you guys want to talk about?
Game's great. Go buy it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, if you haven't already, and for some reason you sat through all hour 20 plus of this, just go buy it.
So-
I mean, as I said in my review, it's definitely an experience that should go. Without any presumptions going in. So obviously, if you're hearing this and haven't bought it, then I mean, oh well.
If
you
you're-
can do that now.
If you made it
But,
this
yeah.
far, into this podcast and you haven't played the game, then what are you doing? This is a spoiler cast. Go now.
Right.
Play. It's
Wipe
great.
your memory.
It's an amazing game.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to PSPremiere Spoilercast for The Last of Us Part 2. If you liked what you heard, please click the like button and subscribe. Until next time, guys. Peace.